Is she sneaking up on me? So our dedicated camera over here for our interpreter is not working today. So it's okay if she sneaks up on me. Okay, so she's got to be in the same shot. So, just kidding. So last weekend I wasn't here. I just want to kind of give you an update. I felt awful last weekend. The longer I go through these chemo treatments, the longer I feel worse. But this weekend I feel really good. So that's good news. So in case you didn't read, so a week ago Tuesday, I had another PET scan, right? So at the very beginning, I think I let you all know that, so after I was diagnosed on June 29th, the plan was that I would have 4 treatments and then do a PET scan, and if it was all clear, then I would have 2 more, right? That was the plan. And so I had the 4 treatments, I had the scan, which came back all clear, thanks to God. And then I met with my oncologist the next day before my next treatment, who said, you know, sometimes people don't quite get this clear, but when I said we would have 4, and then a clear PET scan, and then 2 more, really what I meant was 2 more cycles. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought too. So, and then he said, a cycle is 2 treatments. So they moved the goalposts, is basically what happened. Instead of 2 more afterward, so I proceeded to have my treatment that day, which was number 5 of 8, as opposed to 5 of 6. So, we can do this, right? We got this. So, I am so grateful for all of your prayers because I fully believe that that is did this without crying last time. That's why that scan was clear, because of the power of prayer. So thank you very much. And I do have a very special request, a specific prayer this week. So typically the way this has been rolling out is that next weekend will be my bad weekend. Okay? This is my good weekend, but the weekend right after treatment is when I just start going down in energy and my stomach feels like, I don't know, like they put poison in my body or something, I guess is what I feel like. So, but next weekend, there's a very special wedding that is to take place here at Sacred Heart. Philip and Elise. Philip, you may recall, was one of our young men that went through RCI last year. And I really want to celebrate with them. So I need your prayers for that. Okay? So please pray for that. So before I get to today's gospel, I want to touch on Friday's gospel. So Friday, weekday Mass, we heard the gospel about Jesus traveling from town to town, right? That's not new to us, right? He traveled from town to town, and there were people with him. And in that gospel that day, we were reminded that the 12 were with him. And if you're like me, sometimes in my imagination, I kind of keep it at the 12 that are with him, right? But we were reminded on Friday that, oh no, there were women with him. Right? There were women with him on that journey, and they were named. They were named. And there were others that went from town to town. So the disciples of Jesus were more than just the apostles. Okay? And so that was good for us to be reminded of that. later on that morning, we had a staff meeting, and I invited the staff to go into reflection, like we always start with prayer and reflection. And so I just invite us to think back our own lives, who has been a companion on our journey of discipleship. And so we all just thought about that, and then I shared first couple of people that came to my mind were my parents. They were the first ones to accompany me. They were the first ones to introduce me to the faith. And so that was, I was praying with them in a special way. And then throughout the day, I kept thinking about the gospel this weekend. And so then that led me to, so what we just heard, remember, is that Jesus was walking along, and when he had talked earlier, right, he had shared that news that the Son of Man was first going to have to suffer, right, be put to death, but then he would rise again. And his disciples didn't have the courage to say, wait, what? No, that's not our vision, all right? That's not our understanding of the Messiah. Our understanding is that you are going to get rid of the Roman occupiers here, right? Where you're going to get rid of those oppressors. You're going to get rid of that foreign rule. We are going to be put back in charge, right? And then, as they're walking along, as humans are wont to do, they start thinking and talking about who's going to have what position of power when he comes into his reign, right? Who is the greatest among them? And he asked them, and yeah, so we know how that went, right? So what led me to reflect even further about on Friday was, so I'm the youngest, right, of the 7 of us, my family, and so my next oldest brother was 2 years ahead of me in school, and so the last 2 years of high school for me, I got that spoilage time, okay? I got mom and dad to myself. And I remember vividly those last 2 years, we typically had breakfast together every morning before school or before Dad and I would go out to the farm. But I remember the conversations after football games on Friday nights or basketball games on Friday nights. Throughout those 2 seasons, the Saturday morning conversation centered around the game the night before. And it was kind of the opposite of what the disciples were arguing about. So I would talk about, where I made mistakes and so forth, and my dad would be arguing how good I was and how my teammates had made all the mistakes around me. So, and then I would defend my teammates, of course, and so that's kind of how the conversation would always go. But then my mom was there to kind of make sure that I got that message of not being proud, of make sure that I'm tampering that pride down, right? So they were that beautiful, team. So that's what came back to me when I heard about these disciples. But then on further reflection, I realized that no matter how good of a teammate I wanted to be, right, how it was all about our team's success, it wasn't all about that. Because my motives, I don't know about anybody else, but my motives are not 100% pure. Maybe it's only me. But that in the midst of wanting to be that great teammate, having success as a team, I still wanted the applause. I still wanted to be the standout. I still wanted to be the guy who would get some of the accolades at the end of the season. still wanted to be the guy who is going to be recruited and get these letters that made me feel like I'm all that in a bag of chips, you know. There was still that going on. I recognize as a priest, I fully desire to serve the people of God. To be that servant that Jesus taught us to be, the one that will be willing to wash the feet of others. But you know what? I have to recognize that that's not 100% pure either. That I still want accolades. I still want to be noticed. I still want to be, the whatever, being that person that others will say, oh, wow, that was beautiful, blah, blah, blah. There's part of that I desire that. Maybe that's why my spiritual director, Larry Gillick, and I spend a lot of time talking about ego. And his desire for me is that I embrace it. That I embrace it. That I don't try to say, like my mom's voice in my head, don't be prideful, don't be prideful. Okay? But it's more nuanced than that now that I'm an adult. That I need to recognize that ego is a part of the way God created all of us. And it has a role. But of course it has to be kept in check. It does. Because if ego runs rampant, if I just simply make it all about being recognized and being acknowledged and being applauded and being the whatever, then really quickly I become that person that nobody wants to be around, right? If it runs amok. Okay. I'll share another thing that also on Friday I gathered with my prayer group, my priest support group, and one of the priests hadn't seen me in a while, hadn't seen the little new growth that's coming back up here. And he's one of the funniest people I know. Go ahead and put it out there. Father Ralph O'Donnell. Okay? Everybody online. So he greets me and he says, oh, you look like a baby bird. Yeah. Good luck getting that image out of your head now, right? I'm like, that is really accurate. I have to admit, that is really, really accurate. Later on, I was sharing with them that earlier in the week, so I had the bad weekend, and then it continued. And so the longer I go into this, the further I go into these treatments, the longer I'm feeling bad, okay? And it's not horrible, right? I can do this. I know I can. With God's help, I can do this. But one of my prayers, one morning as I was in prayer, I shared with them that I had this image. I once again, as I've been doing all along, I invited Jesus to come and embrace me and hold me and be close to me. And he was there. He was right there. He puts his arms around me. And a part of me popped out and went running up on a hill. And it was like a silhouette. It was just a dark figure. But it was a part of me that ran up to this hill. And that part of me had a little temper tantrum. A part of me was saying, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And what that same funny guy says to me, says, that childlike tantrum that you had, Jesus wants to embrace that too. So allow that to be that's a part of this journey. It's a part of you. Don't think that it has to be separate from you, or that Jesus wouldn't embrace you. How did this gospel end? He embraced a child who typically gives the tantrums. Me and children. Right? But Jesus wants to embrace us as we are. Each and every one of us. Unless we are childlike. Unless we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. To be embraced by this loving Father, then we won't inherit the kingdom of God. But it's all of us. It's every part of us. It's as we are that Jesus desires to embrace each and every one of us. So, I encourage all of us to allow ourselves the brokenness, the part that we may not want to admit is a part of us, to allow Jesus' embrace to go around all of it. All of it. And it's from there, from his loving embrace, that we will go forward in a good way.
Amen.
Oh, by the way, I noticed some of you, you recognized, I believe, that there was a new soloist, right, during our song. And you wanted to do that, okay? But, okay, just like I suggested to you after, that year of me, I'd sneeze and you'd applaud, right? Or, every homily you would applaud and so forth. I'd invite you to trust that during that prayer that you contributed to, okay, it wasn't the time for the applause. When you just did it now, that was the time, okay? And if Jim doesn't give you that time, I will give you that time, okay? But during the prayer, okay, allow it to be the prayer that continues to speak to us and inspire us. By the way, thank you.